Mm. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Tether Radio podcast. We are kicking off episode 11 today. I am Daniel, and I'm joined today by my brother and co-host Joseph.
What is happening, my man? How you doing, dude?
Dude, I am halfway through a Bell's Two-Hearted Ale, and I have very little to complain about. So.
That's good. That's good because we've got an episode chocked full of only the deepest, hardest hitting topics from this past week. I mean, this is a real humdinger of an episode.
Which, yeah, this is gonna definitely be a little bit lighter hearted episode than previous episodes. Just as much material and just as much good eats for your oral satisfaction, and also to piggyback on the asking how I'm doing a hell of a lot better than Kevin Spacey's last film. Did you see that?
Yeah, they don't know if he's gonna break $425 this weekend or something.
Dude, day one, $126 in the U.S.
I mean, but how did they? I mean, so this
that's like
wait.
10 seats.
That is 10 seats. Yeah, that is 10 seats. So what was what was the movie called? Do you remember?
It was the Billionaire Boys Club. That's what it was. But the funny thing was, man, is like it had like the main dude from Baby Driver, and it had the main guy from The Kingsman, the guy who played Eggsy. And I mean, like it had a pretty stacked cast in
it.
Dude,
13%.
Oh no, it
on Rotten
tanked
Tomatoes.
on Rotten Tomatoes, man. But I will most likely be missing that one. But I'd say it probably won't be in theaters long. So.
$15 million budget.
God, man. And $126. I don't even know. Is that net or gross?
Yeah.
Or does it even matter at that point?
That's the answer to your question. It absolutely does not matter at that point.
Yeah.
But man, that's crazy. I mean, so just a quick aside here. I think briefly mentioned this on the last episode, but was at a bachelor party last weekend? Maybe 2 weeks ago. Yeah. Anyway, the bachelor is a guy that works in finance for a big movie house, and man, it's crazy. The economics of film are not friendly. Yeah. Like it is a brutal business. But $126 on 15 mil. Ouch.
I think I read that it was actually like a straight up record low. I mean, it has to be, right?
Well, I mean, you know, for the sake of calculation, I don't really know what the difference is between that and zero. You know what I mean? Like if the film cans would have just been blown up, you know,
yeah.
nothing would have happened. I feel like that's basically about the same. But man, you know, different. This is a conversation for a different day. Tough year for Spacey, man.
Yeah, true.
Tough year.
But speaking of shit, let's move into our first topic.
Yeah, so your movie goes sideways, and you want to get high.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to get the most out of your movie.
Hold on, no, this is actually a really good segue.
You want to get turned.
Your movie goes to hell. You want to get high, but you just spent $15 million. You only made 126 back. So you don't have a ton of money to go for like some designer drugs. So what do?
You know what I'm gonna reach for? A balloon filled with jenkum.
I'm gonna reach for a Mountain Dew bottle with a balloon on top, and that balloon is gonna be full of jenkum.
I mean,
All
yeah.
right, so jenkum. Okay, how did this come up? We were joking the other day.
Yeah.
Um,
And you made some comment about like, well, you know, I gotta go and I'm gonna go blast some jenkum and, you know, have a good night. And I was like, what in the hell are you talking about?
Yeah, and so jenkum, you know, whether you're familiar with what this is or not, we all went to middle school, or the vast majority of us went to middle school, and I feel like jenkum is like squarely a middle school thing, you know?
Oh, totally.
Yeah,
well, it's one of those like urban legends shit that everybody's got like a friend of a friend of a cousin of a friend that tried it. You know?
And we grew up in the country.
Yeah.
So I could just hear somebody being like, hey, man, get you some jenkum, dumbass. You know?
But yeah, because, I mean, hell, dude, everybody out there was just like, you know, it was like, well, they were huffing whatever, you know, was most easily accessible. So it was like whatever, gas and like diesel. You know, because everybody had that around, you know,
or jenkum, or jenkum. So
but wait, time out, real quick. I'm gonna start off, and I'm gonna just read the hashtags for this, and then I want you to tell them what jenkum is. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Hashtag poop. Hashtag urine. Hashtag pee. Hashtag piss. Hashtag crap. Hashtag high. Hashtag drug.
Where are you getting these hashtags?
Dude, straight from the source, baby. Urban Dictionary.
Urban Dictionary. Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So I see that you've only got the Urban Dictionary. You've only got the Urban Dictionary version up, right? Okay.
This is true. Yeah.
So okay. So dig this. So as we said, jenkum is definitely a middle school term. I think some people, especially based on Daniel's incredible hints here, he's probably gotten us pretty close. But let me just read you the definition of jenkum here. Jenkum is an inhalant and hallucinogen created from fermented human waste. In the mid 1990s, it was reported to be a popular street drug among Zambian street children. I mean, dude, if that ain't a thin slice, I don't know what is. They would put the feces and urine in a jar and cover it with a balloon and then let it ferment in the sun. And then afterwards, they would inhale the fumes created.
I mean, dude, I just gagged a little bit, like when you said the word inhale.
Well, listen to this. No, listen to this. Actually, dude, this makes so much sense that I just said this is a middle school term. In November 2007, there was a moral panic in the United States after widespread reports of jenkum becoming a popular recreational drug in middle and high schools. Though the true extent of the practice has since been called into question, several sources reported that the increase in American media coverage was based on a hoax and faulty internet research. Dude, first of all, how do you discover this?
Well, so this must have been like 2007's Tide Pods.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Exactly right.
But I was looking at the Urban Dictionary website that for some weird reason there's like this really low they have like activity graphed and like a line graph, and they have activity for this site or I'm sorry, for this page. And for some weird reason in September of 2012 there's like literally 3 times as much activity as like any time else. And I would love to know.
On the jenkum page.
Yeah, I would love to know why that is, but I have nothing. So.
Yeah, dude, it must have just been just like high stress in the middle schools, dude. That's like, is that finals? Is that like finals?
Yeah, right.
Or something?
Oh my god, everybody's like, dude, I'm yeah. God, September. I wonder what was going on in September 2012. But well, so now you've had the more scholarly definition from Joseph. So I'm gonna hit you with the Urban Dictionary definition real quick. The new way to get too high these days: take a crap, then take your crap and put it in a bottle, piss in the bottle and shake it up, then put a balloon over the opening of the bottle and sit it out for a day or two. Gases will fill the balloon, then inhale the gases and get fucked up.
Dude, it's just, and here's the other thing. There's also a slang term. It's called butt hash.
Nuh-uh.
Yeah, it's true.
Butt hash. Oh my god.
You know what, man, I'm telling you, people are just crummy. I think that's the best word.
Crummy.
It's so gross. It's so gross. We got to move on from this, man,
Yeah, for
because
sure. Let's roll.
It's so low rent. So anyway, last week was actually a fairly big week for parrot rescues. Did you know that?
I did not until you brought it to my attention.
Yeah, so there were two, which actually means it was probably just a slow news week in general. But yeah, there were two parrot rescues that really kind of like made headlines. One was in Australia, I believe. And so this guy, and I was mistaken, right? I was getting we were going to cover these two a parrot rescue.
Well, how often are there two parrot rescues that are popping up like around the same time?
That's a really good point. No, that's a good point. And so this one's pretty run of the mill, man. This parrot, this man's pet parrot, flies off into this mud, okay, into this drained lake. And so he goes out to get it, and the mud becomes like quicksand. And so he's able to get to the parrot, but and he's got the parrot on his back.
Look, I think the parrot's just seeking high ground, dude.
The parrot is seeking high ground. That's exactly right. And so this poor bastard is off in this like mud bog or whatever, this bog, trying to rescue his parrot. And the fire rescue crew has to come and like have this extensive rescue on this dude with this macaw on his back. And so there are all these pictures. Of course, we'll put this video and photos up on the show notes here, on the show notes section of the site. But there are all these pictures of this guy, like in these high stress positions. He's like halfway out of the mud. He's like this like, rotund man. Like when you look at his face, this man is stressed the F out.
Yeah.
He's like in this battle for his life. And this fucking parrot is just like on his shoulder, hanging out, man.
Yeah. It's just like, I don't know what the problem is, man. Why don't we just fly over there? Where it's not as muddy.
So I was mistaken. I thought this parrot was a foul-mouthed parrot, but it turned out that there were actually two parrot rescues. So this big one with this guy, and then of course at the end of the article they've got this picture of the fire and rescue folks hosing this guy off after his quicksand adventure. But then there was another one in Europe, right? And this parrot, Jessie the parrot, flew out of her owner's house and landed on a roof, right? Okay. And so the owner was like, "Hey, to bond with her, once you get up there, you need to tell her there's a traffic incident right there. Sorry about that." It says to bond with her, you need to tell her that I love you. And so the firefighter's like, "I love you," and Jessie the parrot's like, "I love you," and then Jessie the parrot says, "Fuck off." So this parrot who like apparently has a repertoire of just foul language that it fills out, kept cursing at these firefighters that were trying to rescue her off the roof. So anyway, I guess they gave her some dog food, and then she flew off the roof into a tree, and then they were able to capture her. Yeah. And they said that she sheepishly said thank you to the fire service after that. So.
She's sheepishly said that. Well, at least she's a grateful parrot, man.
At least she's this is I think I'm misspeaking.
It's
probably a macaw.
Oh, okay.
I don't know.
So is a macaw not a type of parrot?
Well, I don't know. Which are the parrots that are ungrateful? I think those are definitely macaws.
Yeah,
right. That aren't like thankful for the things they have. I'm pretty sure that's associated with macaws.
No, yeah. So it's just a type of parrot. It says it's a New World parrot. So
a New World parrot.
As opposed to an Old World parrot. So
the parrot must be the broad.
Yeah. Now, if we're wrong and there's I'm trying to think. What is a bird specialist?
Ooh.
I know. Well, I don't know. Anyway.
Well, yeah.
If there's a bird specialist listening out there, write us and correct us. The email address is tetherradio@gmail.com.
An ornithologist.
Ornithologist, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
If there's an ornithologist that's tuned in, let us know the nuances. We can't. I mean, there's a subsect of parrot that's grateful. There's one that's ungrateful. And there's one that's like really just has a bad attitude. We can't remember which one that is. But so anyway, we wanted to just kick it off with a couple of light articles here. But but
for some reason there seems to be a theme going. I just realized so far of literally people voiding their bodies of wastes. Let's put it that way. The different uses and the different problems that it can cause.
Right. So this next article, you're going to get us kicked off here, but basically it is an article that is covering these new public eco-friendly urinals in Paris, right?
Correct.
Which, by the way,
I love the opening photo in this article too.
Me too. The opening photo. Go ahead, describe it to us.
So there's literally a ferry going down like a channel of water with probably 100 people on it. And there's a guy that is literally pissing in the eco-friendly urinal, staring at this ferry of people over this like kind of low concrete wall kind of thing. So it's just like I feel like they just went like all out to get the perfect time like photo.
Right, and like and this picture is just so ridiculous. This guy taking a piss and watching
did you
huge
see the
bars
caption?
of people.
Nothing to see here, just move along.
All right, so describe to us what's happening. What's happening with these public urinals? What's the deal?
So apparently public urination, which I'm sure is a problem in all large cities. I mean, Joseph, I know that you can speak to this. In LA, I know it's a huge problem in San Francisco. And I mean, it's just one of those situations of people don't want to give up, or people don't want to allow the public to use the restrooms of their businesses without actually being a patron of the business kind of thing, which is understandable, but at the same time, it's kind of like, what options do you really have when you're out and about kind of thing. But anyway, so public urination has been a really bad problem in Paris. And so they decided to run a pilot program with these public eco-friendly urinals. That it's basically, it looks like just a trash can kind of thing, but it also has kind of like a little screen thing to the side. That two of them that come out to shield like people from the side from being able to see your junk kind of thing, and then like a small ramp down so that obviously the urine like drains into the receptacle or whatever. But so they've put these out here just so that people would to hopefully get people to curb pissing in the streets and stuff. But it's kind of weird, I guess, because I mean we started talking about when we were talking about articles that we wanted to cover. I thought this was kind of interesting because I mean, dude, I know that both of us have been in plenty of situations that it's just like I said, you're out and about, you went to some bars, you went to a restaurant, whatever, you're walking to the different areas that you're wanting to go, and there's like literally nowhere to get to a bathroom kind of thing, you know?
Right. Right. So I think it's generally, it's kind of odd that something that is as basic as relieving yourself. I'm saying for men and women.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, real quick, sorry. Also, in regards to the receptacle, they have decided to put flower beds on top of them. I guess to just make them a little aesthetic.
A flower bed is a very loose.
Well, it's more
loose
like
description of this. These things. These things look like.
It looks like it has like soil in it. That's it.
It looks like it has soil, and then I mean these flower beds beat the shit up, dude. They look really terrible. They look, maybe people are peeing in there too, but
extra points if you can get it in the flower bed.
I think it's really weird that people are that something as basic as using the restroom is something that you have to really like think about in a city. I mean, I remember being in New York one time, and we were there for New Year's, right? For the the ball drop or whatever. And being faced with the situation where, had a couple of drinks with folks before we went out, went and had a couple of drinks at the bar, but it's like literally shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
And being faced with this situation where I'm like, okay, I'm not going to pay, like I'm not going to buy something like every single time I have to go to the bathroom. Well, at least, that's not the wish position. So then being
and most of the places that you'd probably have to buy something, it's not going to be fucking cheap.
Well, it's not going to be. It's not going to be cheap. It's totally not going to be cheap, and it's probably right. So, and I get it from the business's standpoint, but I think it's funny that that it's like something so basic that it just seems like, I don't know. Actually, I think they do have these in Paris or maybe it's Prague. I can't remember, but I think they do have like public restrooms, right? Where you can like, maybe it's like a quarter or something where there's like it's like a big, like a cylinder, right? With a sliding door. And you can like go into this cylinder for, I don't know, like a minute and a half or something like that, and then the door
and then it just ejects you.
Yeah.
Your pants are down and like
just shoot you like a smokestack at the top of the smokestack. Like
your minute and a half is up, Mr. Bradley.
Get ready for ejection. You should have thought before you went out, idiot. Yeah. That's it. It's you pull up your pants and it just sprays your pee back on the front of you. To teach
well, so real quick, I'm gonna have to, since you just said that, sprays your pee back onto you. That is what they're doing in San Francisco. They have started introducing this thing, and it's called I can't remember what the film is called that are actually spraying, but this stuff is called Ultra Everdry, and it's a nanotech for this high, like to just max out the hydrophobicity, I guess, of a surface, and so these walls that are coated, or I guess these they are walls. They've coated all these walls that were quoted as being like high P areas kind of thing.
Right.
And literally what it does is if you try to pee on the wall, it basically reflects it back onto you.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's
I was like,
so they've obviously taken a different approach.
Yeah, but anyway, back to the public urinal shit.
Yeah,
I thought that was really fun. Honestly, the nanotech stuff for the Everdry is like crazy. Like it literally repels any kind of like
That's so terrible, dude. You're like, because so many people have walked that path before where they like, leave this bar and then they're like, man, I really gotta go. Like, there's gotta be a place around here somewhere. And then they like duck around the corner, but thousands before them have thought that this was a protected place to go also, right?
Yeah.
And then you just come out with with urine all over you. That's terrible,
dude.
It's terrible.
I just shot you the article if you want to take it.
Well, yeah, and we'll post this. We'll post this on show notes. So,
Yeah.
but I guess my point is, something as universal as needing to use the restroom when you're out and about in a city. It seems like that there would be some sort of solution for public restrooms or something that would be, sponsored by the city, right? And so, I mean, it's not lost on me that, things aren't free and that obviously there would have to be a budget for that and whatever. But that just seems like that would be something that would be appropriate,
Well, it just seems like it would kind of be worked into the public works budget, maybe.
I don't know. I mean, if you have a ton of foot traffic, I don't think it's. I mean, public parks have restrooms there. So I don't think it's too crazy, but I mean, I'm sure the devil's in the details. I'm sure it'd be really expensive to maintain.
Well, and honestly, people have actually been they've been pissed off for numerous reasons with these things. Like, obviously, you have one crowd that's like, yo, you're facilitating people using the restroom in public, and so they think that it. Let's see, what was there was somebody just quoted as saying like. They thought that it was immodest and that it incited exhibitionism kind of thing. Which I mean, yeah, maybe, but the other thing is a lot of people are really angry about it. I keep wanting to say people are pissed off.
Yeah, you don't want to say that.
Yeah, right. But anyway, some people are actually saying that it's sexist, that these things are sexist because
I can see that.
Well, no, and honestly, my wife Megan, I was just chatting her up about the stuff that we were going to talk about, and she was like, I mean, that's kind of messed up because what about women? It's not like it's not like they don't have to pee also, so. I don't know.
Yeah, man.
But then at that point, you're kind of just throwing up a porta potty,
Well, yeah, but that's probably what should happen.
Yeah. Well, no, and you're right.
If you're gonna go, and the other thing is, I mean, of course, we're gonna put this article up, but like. All of these pictures, like, it doesn't look like the pilot program's working very well. Like, one of the other pictures, it just looks like it's leaking out the bottom.
That's what I was saying. There's like literally there's
the plants are all
a small
dead
stream.
On top. Like, these dudes are just like having their dick in their hand, watching people pass by. Like, there's piss all over their shoes. I mean, this pilot program is a mess, man. It's a real mess.
Yeah, it definitely leaves something to be
also,
decided.
how is it emptied?
I mean, I would think that it's probably emptied very similarly to like porta potty kind of things or whatever.
I don't know, man.
Somebody's going around and piss pumping.
I think the jury's definitely still out on this pilot program.
Yeah.
So we'll have to keep a hawk eye on the public urinal conversation because.
But I also don't want to over exaggerate this pilot program. There are literally 4 of these in Paris, and
they have a picture of 3 of them.
They have a picture of 3 of them, and they have a 5th that's planned for installation. So
yeah, man.
Which that we'll be following up on this story. So
yeah, and if you're a Parisian and you've used one of these things, let us know.
Yeah,
let us know how's the experience.
Yeah.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, how perverted are you? Feel free to put that in the subject. So we can have our expectation managed. But But if you think about it, right, like, so you got to figure out where to place these things. I'm trying to segue into this next thing.
No, I know. I was gonna see how you're gonna do it.
Yeah, it's not gonna work at all. So next up, we have a pretty cool article, man. This comes from Quanta Magazine. And this is about some algorithmic or research on algorithms, rather, that some folks from MIT have come out with recently. And this is actually a really, really, really cool concept here. But basically, the title of the article is "Universal Method to Sort Complex Information Found." And so, just to summarize here briefly, there is a problem in data science called the nearest neighbor problem, right? And so, in a nutshell, the way that they start to describe it in the article, and the way that I have heard it be described before, is with like trying to optimize distances, right? Mm-hmm. So when you use something like Google Maps, what's happening under the cover, or excuse me, under the hood, is that there are a series of algorithms that are saying, okay, this is where you are, and these are the variables that might affect where you're going. So what's the fastest way to get you there, right? Mm-hmm. And so, but one of the things that they bring up in this article, which is super rad, is that when we're talking about kind of porting this idea of the nearest neighbor to other data sets, like distance does not mean a length in certain data sets, right? So if you look at genomics, if you look at
they were just talking about how there are different types of distance.
There are different types of distance, right? And so really, what we're looking for in these massive data sets is similarity, right? Mm-hmm. How similar is this this bit of data from that bit of data, and we want to understand how closely these things are related, so that we can do super interesting things with the data, right? Mm-hmm. And so what's cool about this is that it was assumed that there was not one universal way to kind of think about the similarity in all these different types of data. And Daniel, you and I were talking about this briefly, mm-hmm. Before we kicked off the episode. But so just to kind of get to the end of the article here, basically, I think it was 4 or 5 folks from MIT and a guy from Yale or something, I believe, who was a mathematician, kind of joined this group, or kind of joined together, and have released a series of papers that go on to describe this this methodology that kind of standardizes the ways. I misspoke. It wasn't Yale, it was Princeton. Asaf Noir, from a mathematician and computer scientist from Princeton. Mm. But they've written a couple of papers, 2 papers, that get into the details of thinking about kind of a standardized way to start to understand the similarities in data sets. Mm-hmm. And so what's really awesome about this is that many problems that we deal with in data science I need this in some capacity, right? Mm-hmm. And so to think about standardizing that across the board is a huge innovation, and it's really, really interesting. So I don't know. Did you get time to go through the article with a fine-tooth comb?
No, not honestly, no, because I feel like it was. I got some of the concepts, but dude, it's a pretty deep dive in the even the explanation of it, like. But it was. I guess I got the overarching concept of, hey, we used to. Well, for instance, like you use the example of a GPS, and it's like, oh well. we already know these certain points on the map, so we're really building a route between these two new points kind of thing.
Right.
And so that would be one distance, whereas they were talking about like a genome, measuring the distance between two genomes, and they were talking about how, the distance is how many insertions, deletions, all that in somebody's DNA would we have to do to make them identical to this other person.
Exactly.
And that would be considered a distance. And so they were basically saying, hey, we've come up with this new algorithm that can be used for all of these.
That's exactly right.
So so correct me if I'm wrong, but it's basically kind of like, okay, so you have, we'll say I'm trying to think on my feet for an example, but like you have a mechanic, and this mechanic can work, knows his way around automobiles or something like that. Well, all of a sudden he has this new tool set that he can fix blenders, he can fix airplanes, he can fix spaceships, he can fix, you know what I'm saying? So that it's just all encompassing now. Yes. And I mean, dude, this would be a complete and utter game changer kind of thing. So it's exciting. I don't understand it completely, but it's exciting as hell because I can only imagine like what this would allow us to do in the future. So
and here's a really simple way to think about it, right? Mm-hmm. What if the kind of specialization necessary, like if you don't need to be a genomics expert to optimize algorithms for genomics, instead you're just optimizing an algorithm, and that algorithm, because there is a standardized methodology of what this algorithm seeks to accomplish. When you're optimizing this algorithm, you're optimizing it for everything.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? For every
like open source code kind of shit.
Right. For every application. Right. So I think that's the really interesting part, because understanding how data is related and correlated and anti-correlated, and just how data how data kind of behaves in context is the hardest problem. Yeah. I mean, that is, and I would add to that, not only is that the hardest problem, but that is exactly the purpose of big data. Absolutely, without a doubt. And so this isn't a panacea. This doesn't solve, all big data questions, but certainly thinking about how similar the distance is, just to kind of pull the phraseology here from the article, but how similar the distance is across these, really this wide array of disciplines is really, really cool and really interesting. I'll just read a quick quote from the article. Yeah. So as I mentioned, they did two papers. So it says, the first paper showed there exists a way to take a metric and divide it into two, but it didn't give a recipe for how to do this quickly, said Wayne Garten. In the second paper, we say there exists a way to split points, and in addition, the split is this split, and you can do it with fast algorithms. So it's a disciplined way of designing algorithms for nearest neighbor search in whatever metric space you care about. So that's, again, the standardization of this problem is very, very cool. So we've got this article from Quanta magazine. I think we maybe have a couple of other articles that were on this, but I don't know. It's funny to me that like, whatever, people just shit like this just kind of slides by, and like, if these guys are successful in this, like, your life will just get better. Somebody will make $1 billion and you'll never know who it was.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're completely right.
But your shit will just work better.
Yeah.
So anyway,
sure.
the universal method, and we'll get that posted up. So so dude, the next one is slightly tragic here. I
wanted to cover this just because, man, I feel like we read about this stuff, and what came to mind when I read this, and by the way, the article is millennial couple bikes near ISIS territory thinking humans are kind, and they end up getting killed. what came to mind was, remember those backpackers that, was it like Iran or Iraq, or that they decided to go to spring break or something like that?
Yeah, and they got captured.
And then like the U.S. was in, basically trying to get them back, and they had this big campaign to basically get them to deal with their captors, and it's just, in my opinion, it's people that live in the United States, even though there are definitely rough places in the United States, those rough places are like Malibu compared to other countries. A lot of other countries. Not all other countries, a lot of other countries. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And so I think that what people get this sense of safety, and they think that it's applicable everywhere, and it's not. And case in point, this story. So this couple decided that, and I'm going to use some quotes from this because, my God, Joseph and I use a term, earth biscuits, and it's just what we describe as like basically flower children, like, the world could be all wars can be ended with love, and the only thing that needs to exist is love and kindness and acceptance and all this stuff. Well, that ain't the world we live in, folks. Just letting you know. But anyway, so this couple from D.C., both 29 years old. The guy worked in the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and the girl worked at Georgetown University in the admissions office. And they decided that they were wasting their lives in these jobs. And so the guy had a blog, and I'm just gonna read this because I feel like this totally lets you know what kind of couple we're dealing with here. Quote, "I've grown tired of spending the best hours of my life in front of a glowing rectangle, of coloring the best years of my life in swaths of gray and beige. I've missed too many sunsets while my back was turned. Too many thunderstorms went unwatched. Too many gentle breezes unnoticed." So I mean, like, that's okay.
So look, man, I don't necessarily. I mean, I get it. And like, here's what I'd say.
I'm just too much of a cynic, realist, like, I don't know what. Well, anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a good thing for people to, like, get out there and do their thing, right? Do whatever makes you happy. But this is, I think the kicker is what goes down with them. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, so the world needs many different types of people to function, and I mean, like, this is one of those types that I love having friends like this because they're fun as shit, because everything, there's no such thing as a bad day in their eyes,
Right.
But anyway, so they decide to up and leave their jobs and basically go pretty much backpacking. And they decided,
which is totally cool.
Super cool. Joseph and I actually got to, take a little trip down to Peru one time. I'm sure that's for another episode.
Yep.
But anyway, so to keep on quoting them, because this is kind of the crux to why they decided to do what they did. You read also on this dude's blog. You read the papers, and you're led to believe that the world is a big, scary place. People, the narrative goes, are not to be trusted. People are bad. People are evil. I don't buy it. Evil is a make-believe concept we've invented to deal with the complexities of fellow humans holding values and beliefs and perspectives different than our own. By and large, humans are kind. Self-interested sometimes, myopic sometimes, but kind. Generous and wonderful and kind. Okay, so they end up in a neighboring state, I guess, of Afghanistan known as Tajikistan. Tajikistan, sorry. And so there in Afghanistan, there is a highly active terrorist group, of which I'm sure many are aware of, known as ISIS. Well, they were riding their bikes through the country on July 29th, and a car rammed them. 5 men got out of the car and stabbed the couple to death, along with 2 other cyclists. One was from Switzerland and the other was from the Netherlands. So a car rams them, a bunch of people jump out of this car, and they stab them to death. 2 days later, ISIS released a video showing the same guys that got out of the car in front of a group's black flag. They looked at the cameraman and vowed to kill, quote, disbelievers. So, I mean, it's one of these things that, like, I hate that this happened, dude, because, I mean, dude, 29, hell, I'm 32, you know, you're a little bit older than me or whatever, and, like, it's in my eyes, dude, you haven't lived yet, kind of thing, you know, and to make such a vital error and such an avoidable error, you know, because I mean, I feel like you're playing with fire, dude, you know.
No, I mean, it's just I don't think that it's having it's just I don't know, it's like not, it's just not being, I don't want to say realistic, not being kind of like conscious of like the world around you. I mean, if you live in the United States, you live in a bubble, period.
Yeah.
Period. We grew up in a very, very rural, very, very poor area of Tennessee. And you know, there's some gnarly spots there. I've lived in less savory spots in Long Beach and Los Angeles. You know, I live now.
I lived in downtown Memphis.
And you lived in downtown Memphis. I mean, I've lived in, you know, our place now. We're within, you know, walking distance, a block or so away of Skid Row. You go to Skid Row, it's crazy. It's like a third world country. But you're still in the United States, right?
Yeah.
And there are absolutely places in this world where people, you know, human life is not valued in the same way, maybe not valued at all. So
well, plus, dude, there's a reason for tourist spots.
Right.
Honestly, I mean, like, yes, there's like pretty things to see, really interesting historic artifacts and stuff like that, but they're also most of the time pretty safe areas, right?
Right.
So, I mean, like when you decide to go super like far off the beaten path, it's you're taking a gamble, man. I mean, like you need to at least
if you're not informed.
That's literally where I was headed, is like you need to do some research, you need to know what you're getting into, kind of thing, because I dare say that these people, especially with the mentality that it seems like they had, they were just kind of like, oh, you know, well, people are good, so I'm sure we'll be fine. But
yeah,
I don't know. It sucks. It's a terrible, you know, it's a complete and utter tragedy. But like, yeah, dude. I mean, it's just a really shitty story, to be honest. So.
Yeah, it's crazy. The world's big. The thing though, man, is I don't think that the world, like, if you're scared of that happening to you, I mean, come on, man, you're gonna get struck by lightning before you're gonna get mowed over and stabbed by ISIS in Tajikistan. I mean, I'm saying even if you go to Tajikistan, right? Mm-hmm. But I think my thing would be just like, God damn, man, be a little bit more aware of your shit. You know, like there were like a couple of Australians a few years ago that went to Mexico and were trying to buy weed, and they found their van blown out. Right, and two bodies in the van, and the van's like completely burned up, and these guys had just been like, you know, had been like, I mean, they were surfing, went for a surf trip, and then were trying to buy weed. It's just like, dude, if you're in Mexico, like, keister your fucking weed, and just like, don't be approaching, folks at like some cantina in a small, far out of the way place, trying to buy some dope, and then whatever, they think you're like some rich Australian, and then you end up maxed out, man. Your karma points get maxed out. But
just remember, when you're not in the United States, you're not in the United States.
Well, just read a book. You know what I mean?
Right.
Read a book. Like, you've got like operatives, like, special ops soldiers or whatever, that train for like years to go to gnarly places and do crazy shit, right? Yeah. And then some people just, I guess, think that like Pachula and good vibes are going to get them through. Ain't the case,
Yeah, so. For sure.
All right, so we're entering the home stretch here.
Word.
Entering the home stretch, and what we are going to talk about now is a topic that is near and dear to my heart in some ways. In some ways, I think it's a nasty, brutish topic, but we'll chat about it anyway. So the ICO, the initial coin offering. Daniel, you know that I will have been working in distributed tech for 5 years, I guess.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
In January, it'll be 5 years, which has been interesting. Started to kind of poke around as like a researcher in like late 2013, but never published anything or pushed any research. Started kind of pushing research in 2014, mostly on the Bitcoin blockchain. This was prior to Ethereum coming into the picture, and was lucky enough to work at a highly technical shop in 2015, 16. Worked at a group that stood up blockchain ecosystems for enterprise groups, and we're trying to kind of understand how the Ethereum blockchain might be useful for enterprise. So this was like prior to 2017. Which is when this like ICO madness, came about, and everybody was going crazy on it. So, I'm gonna go ahead and just kind of bring it back to square one and describe exactly what an ICO is.
Real quick though, Litecoin.
Yes.
Is that
Litecoin is a fork of Bitcoin.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
All right.
So
proceed, please.
Well, no, this is a good question. I mean, we're going to forego like a deep dive into a description of blockchain, but basically, blockchain it is a distributed ledger that no one person has total control over. And so the way to think about it is, in business, who is telling the truth, and the truth of a situation is kind of hard to come by. And if you have one distributed kind of source of what's actually happening, source of truth, I guess, if you will, distributed ledger that kind of explains exactly who has what and where it is in the system, that's fairly interesting. And so then you say, okay, well, if nobody owns it, how do you incentivize people to interact with this protocol being literally a language that computers are speaking to each other, and that's where mining comes in, and so anyway, we could do a deeper dive on the structure of blockchain, but suffice to say, it's an interesting tech, and there have been some like silly gains, to say the least.
Yeah.
And so with some of these projects, people don't really understand, I don't think at a base level, kind of what these projects are. And so many of these projects have been raising money through this event called an initial coin offering. And so basically what an initial coin offering allows is for a company to raise capital without selling equity in their business, right? So what they'll do is they'll say, hey, we have a distributed app, and if you want to use our distributed app, you're going to have to use this native currency that we invented. and here's our development time horizon. Maybe it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, maybe in some cases, and I've seen white papers that have these in them 5 years long.
So real quick, just so that I'm sticking with you. So basically, the currency that they would be offering out, it's only pretty much or it's only worth as much as pretty much what's being developed, right?
Theoretically. Okay. What's really screwed up about this is it really begs the question. I mean, and there are operational reasons you may want like a native token, because if you can understand how this native token is being used in your ecosystem, then you can design, for example, something called a token curated registry, which is like a way of getting like your little small economy to work in the way that it needs to, right? So there are kind of operationally relevant rationales for having a native token or a native currency. But yes, I mean, that is basically the way to think about it. Is like it's really only, its value should track kind of the efficacy of the project, right?
Gotcha.
But what's stupid about this is really it's like, why not just use Bitcoin, right? Like if the only reason to have a native currency is to like, there needs to be a more robust rationale than like, well, yeah, of course, like this is our private little ecosystem, and if you want to come in and play in it, you need to because otherwise you're just creating like a rewards point that's being tracked by a blockchain, which is like not really that interesting. TCRs, token curated registries, kind of take that idea and add a couple layers to it. And so it's still kind of like you're spending a rewards point. The difference would be that you could create kind of layers to get people to behave in this ecosystem in the way that you need them to behave to theoretically make the ecosystem more valuable. Now, if you've heard me say the word theoretically like 8 times in a second, that's because I mean, dude, and I've been, working kind of in this and, tangentially in associated technologies. I'm actually developing, in this in some kind of like related areas now, like actually programming in some related areas now. But it's like, it's highly speculative, right? And like, frankly, most of it's bullshit. Like none of these projects can really achieve from a technical perspective. I'm saying using a blockchain to get the throughput, the data throughput, the number of transactions that are necessary to pull off the business use case that they're suggesting. You can't do it with many of these blockchains. Stellar, you can. Ethereum, you really can't.
Well, so in to put it in perspective, not only for me, but also I'm sure that there are listeners out there that I'd fall under the same category as me, that I would, or at least I would consider myself to be a layman in regards to blockchain tech and all that. But so what you're saying is like the thing that comes to mind is you have to have all these transactions in order to actually be building the blockchain like infrastructure for each one of these things. And if they can't handle lots of transactions at a time, then it's really not viable, right?
Well,
right. Is that what you're saying?
So you've got companies that are building applications on top of a blockchain.
Okay.
Right. But the underlying data structure cannot do what it needs to do to even be able to support the application in the first place.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's just the technology is underdeveloped, to say the least.
Gotcha.
Right?
Okay.
And so what's fascinating is that you had entrepreneurs and some hucksters, which this is kind of the focus of our conversation today.
Yeah.
But that came and said, wow, this is a great way to raise money. I can sell this token, don't have to relinquish equity. It's not like these tokens come with voting rights. They are literally like selling like rewards points. Literally. Yeah. That's or like a and probably, frankly, a rewards point is probably a better bet. Right.
So is it? And honestly, I'm literally trying to dumb this down as possible so that I'm getting a.
Here, actually, I can help you. I can help you. So imagine that I am building. Let's say I am building a. We'll use Augur. Augur is a good example because they're live now. Okay.
Okay.
Augur is a prediction marketplace that is built on top of Ethereum. Okay. And so what Augur's application is, Augur's an app that is built on top of the blockchain, the Ethereum blockchain, right? Mm-hmm. And so what Augur is doing is they're saying we are an application that is user a user interface, right? Mm-hmm. That allows people to set up markets of anything. Right. So like, let's say that you say, I think, the wheat prices are, in the United States are
I was going to go Beanie Babies, but.
Or whatever. No, whatever. Or whatever. Like, I think Aretha Franklin's going to die on Thursday or whatever. Right. Yeah. I mean, literally anything.
Yeah.
And you say, and I'm going to put $10 that the wheat prices are going to be at, 80 cents a bushel or whatever. I don't even know if that's a realistic, range there for wheat, but for the sake of this conversation, 80 cents a bushel by September. Somebody could then take the other side of that and say, I don't think they're going to be 80 cents a bushel by September, right? Mm-hmm. And so you say $10 says they are, and they say $10 says they aren't. That's what Augur is doing. Now, why is that interesting? It's interesting because according to the wisdom of the crowds, right? If you can get people to, vote with money on the way that they think the world is going to work, that's a pretty accurate theoretically proxy for
how the world's gonna work,
for what's gonna happen. For what's gonna happen. Like,
it sounds like, honestly, like complicated gambling.
I mean, Augur is, and that's like one example of many. Right, you've got companies that are suggesting that you can put medical records on blockchains is totally bullshit. I worked on that for years, right? And that's a hard problem to get, to get something like that to be a reality. But anyway, so that's an example of Augur. So then Augur would say, but if you want to bet in this ecosystem, you can't use dollars or British pounds or any other currency. You can't use Bitcoin. You have to use a token called REP, R-E-P, right? Mm-hmm. And then they sell REP that you can then use in their ecosystem. You following?
Yeah. So I mean, I understand how to get into the ecosystem. But how do you get out of the ecosystem?
Right. So to get out of the ecosystem, you could theoretically settle let's say you settle a couple of bets and you win, and now you have 500 rep. Yeah. Well, you could sell your rep for Bitcoin for somebody else that wants to get in the ecosystem, and you could turn your Bitcoin into fiat.
Gotcha. Right? So, I mean, it's kind of stock-ish. Kind of thing, not stock-ish in the sense of shares, not as in regards to anything past that.
So I'm glad you said that because that is the biggest issue, and this is why we're talking about this cryptocurrency, the scams that have been happening in crypto. Yeah. So yes, in terms of comparing that as a transaction. If you're using that as an example of a transaction, like I have this thing and I've got to sell this thing for, something, and then I've got to sell and then I've got to convert that to fiat. Sure. Yeah. You can think of it the same way. Okay. But where it's different is that with stock, there's a generally agreed upon, first of all, it's regulated, right? Second of all, there's generally agreed upon valuation, procedures and methodologies, right? So different perspectives around the value that the stock represents, right? And so the way the stock market works is that you say theoretically it's an efficient marketplace, which means that, which this is not true, but theoretically it's an efficient marketplace, which means that you have access to as much information as I have. Right, so our thesis might be different, but we have access to the same information, right? Yeah. The starting point is the same. And so the problem with these tokens that people are selling is that there's no generally agreed upon valuation methodology at all. Period. So it's like you're kind of buying into the future development of this project, but not really, right? Because it's not like you own equity, and so you're not really getting anything in return when you put capital in, but this token, which you can only really sell for Bitcoin, right?
Yeah.
And so, by the way, I love this. I really do think this is the future. I just think it's insanely underdeveloped right now, right?
Oh yeah, totally. No, it's straight up the Wild West, man. Which I think they actually used that at the end of this article, but I feel like that's a pretty accurate portrayal of what the blockchain Bitcoin stuff is right now, because I think that people understand, like you, people understand how it works and stuff. But you're like one of the 5%ers.
But we don't.
Or at least you understand a shit ton more than most other people.
Right. And so here's the problem. This technology is really interesting. It's really sexy. A lot of people are really into it, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you layer on top of, I mean, we've spent 20 minutes just kind of scratching the surface.
Yeah.
And then you layer on top of this the fact that I'm going to say it's unregulated. It's not that it's unregulated. These are basically securities. I think legally they are, would be considered securities, are considered securities. Mm-hmm. But there is no, and there is increasing interest in specifically regulating cryptocurrency, but as it stands now, there are no specific laws that pertain directly to cryptocurrency to kind of allow this to be regulated, kind of stem to stern, right? Markedly different than the equities markets and the futures markets, right, that we see. So anyway, what this breeds is, and this is like traditional economics, when profits come easily, you see a bunch of people flood in, right?
Yeah.
And because these markets are so misunderstood, you've had an unbelievable number of scams where people sell these ICO. You will sell these ICOs, right? Sell tokens for millions of dollars, and they do not have shit. And not only do they not have shit, but what they're suggesting they can do with the technology is impossible, and their development timeline is totally unrealistic.
And the people that are buying in just don't have the knowledge to know that they're blowing smoke up their ass, basically.
Right. Totally.
Right.
Even people who study this technology, anybody who tells you that they really get it is not telling you the truth.
Yeah.
Because value is not you can't argue value, right? Like you have to create value somewhere for something to be worth anything.
Yeah.
And as it stands, this is really kind of the pendulum's, swinging way to the side where it's like, no, ICOs, you just don't understand how to value them. And now it's kind of swinging back, and people are saying, well, actually, this looks a lot like, it looks a lot like a lot of these deals are looking a lot like traditional VC, the big ICOs that are serious ICOs, people that really want to raise money and really want to build a project. A lot of those, the capital's being raised behind closed doors with, well-known VCs, right?
Yeah.
And so anyway, and I'll just leave this as an example, and then we'll kind of step here. But there's a company called Tron, right? And they were so if you think about using a digital currency, or creating and tracking digital value, video games make a ton of sense, right? Where with something like Fortnite or whatever, because you can buy Fortnite things with fiat, right? Money into the game.
Oh yeah. There is an in-game currency kind of thing. Yes.
Right. So using a blockchain to track in-game currency like that, like there is a marketplace. The marketplace is robust. People, are really interested in buying things in Fortnite. And if you can understand how these tokens are kind of working, then you might be able to, or how they're flowing and who's holding them and how they're moving in this ecosystem, then there may be some really interesting ways that you could design the game to get these tokens to flow in a way that maybe makes you more money, or maybe, is more advantageous for the ecosystem or whatever. So anyway, Tron was working on a like some sort of in-game currency, I believe. I'd have to take a look because I think they maybe had pivoted a couple times. Long story short, all of their their offering documents, all of them were literally copied from another company. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a joke, right?
Yeah.
And so Tron went ahead.
Real quick. So, I mean, it seems like it would be kind of difficult to plagiarize, like white papers and stuff like that, because I'm assuming this is this not public knowledge? Because if they're trying to get investors,
it's totally public knowledge. That's what was so absurd is people were like, yeah, well, of course, okay, fine, they copied it, but look what they're doing. Right?
Okay, gotcha.
And and it says, I think Tron did something like $70 million in their ICO, right? And so. That's just it's a massive amount of money, and it's a little bit crazy. Like it doesn't really make sense. And so anyway, long story short, here's the deal: do not invest in ICOs. Like if there's an ICO that you want to invest in, then you need to find somebody who you trust, like implicitly, who is a technologist, and you need to ask them about this project. And actually just don't invest in it. You know what I mean? Like,
go talk to them, make sure that they get you to understand it very completely, and then don't invest.
And then don't invest in it. Because, I mean, these things it's just wild. But I think that this is a really, really interesting story that's continuing to unfold because, the tokenization of all things is real and matters, for sure. And just to kind of riff a little bit from that other article, where we kind of touched on big data, we're in a situation now where, data is absolutely the master asset class. And so to be able to tokenize and track and, I guess that's what blockchains are really good at doing, is really tracking, right? And so to be able to tokenize and track and kind of create these kind of new ways of interacting with data because, we know we have data provenance because we can prove chain of custody because we can track, right? Like that's kind of interesting. But we're far off from a lot of these projects, being worth anything. And so anyway, that's why these crypto markets are so volatile. The lack of data in these markets, like a lack of information in any market, that's really kind of sums to speculation, right?
Yeah.
Because if you can't calculate it, you guess, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so anyway, I thought this was an interesting article, and you and I were talking about it and thought it would be worth kind of digging into it a little bit. But I definitely suggest everybody rolling their sleeves up and kind of taking a deeper look at this technology. It's definitely interesting, but do not put more than you're willing to lose.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
For sure. And I mean, like, dude, which I think that we've spoken, not on the podcast or anything, but just about, blockchain in healthcare. And like you said, I mean, dude, we are way the hell off from being able to implement that. Because, I mean, shit, dude, we're still trying to get converted to electronic health records, It's hospitals can't even,
And Cerner and Epic do not want you to own your data.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
So this absurdity of a longitudinal health record where it's like your data and you own it and it's like in your wallet. It's like, that's bullshit.
Yeah.
Because there are massive cottage industries that thrive on the fact that systems don't work like they, philosophically should.
Yeah.
So it's just like the level of change that's going to have to, occur before. Yeah. And not only that, it's like, is Nana, in a good position to be able to like, manage a private key to access her, her health records? Like, no is the answer. Yeah. So anyway, it's just there's a lot of room to travel there, but it's a really interesting technology. And if your friend, if you overhear like an ICO tip, like just overhear it and walk away.
Yeah, seriously.
Because like
take the money that you would invest and go have a nice meal.
That's exactly right.
Because you're gonna get more out of that meal than you are an ICO. So.
Yeah. I mean, buyer beware, man. It's really interesting technology. I mean, frankly, I'm totally sold, but definitely buyer beware because it is the Wild West. But anyway, well, look, it looks like we are kind of up here at the end of the show. I just wanted to remind everybody really quickly, really appreciate you guys tuning in for yet another episode of Tether Radio, of course.
Hey, real quick. Also, I wanted to announce that Tether Radio is doing an ICO next week.
Yeah, that's right. You can find us. You can find all of our information on ICOalert.com.
ICO Alert.
Which ICO Alert is actually a real website, and they will rank our ICO. And
ICOalert.scam.
.scam. That's Scamington. Anyway. Yeah. So, and actually, one other quick thing. So we are keying up a pretty cool episode for you guys in the next 2 or 3 weeks. We're going to be doing an episode on conspiracy theories, and we're gonna try out a new format on this one, right? And just see how it flows. But we've got some super cool folks that we've engaged on this, and we'll be rolling this thing out in a couple 3 weeks. So. We'll give you a heads up the week before it comes to fruition. But wanted to remind everybody that if you heard anything that you liked or disliked or have any commentary or just errant thoughts here for Daniel or I, feel free to shoot us an email at tetherradio@gmail.com. That's TETHERRADIO@gmail.com. On Twitter, you can find us at @tether_radio. Instagram is the same, at @tether_radio, and on Facebook you can find us at Tether Radio, all one word. That's on the book, on the old Facebook. If you don't hate Mark,
the old face hole.
Out in the old face hole. If you don't hate Mark and you haven't deleted the account, come see us over there. But anyway, well, thank you again for joining us for yet another episode of Tether Radio. I'm Joseph,
and I'm Daniel.
And we are here reminding you to stay tethered, friends. Have a great week. We will see you next episode.
See you guys next episode. Whoop!